Hey, I'm Darren Steele of EatMoveBe.com, and I'm back with part two of my broadcast. On Friday last week, I did why New Year's diet and fitness resolutions never work and what to do instead. Now, I'm covering four topics in total. The first two last Friday, and that video is saved on my Facebook page, so feel free to watch that at your earliest convenience. I went over why New Year's resolutions don't work when it comes to your health and fitness. And to explain why, I went deeper into the issues of how a structured, habit-based nutrition approach to your nutrition is what's actually going to help you get the results you want. And the reason is a New Year's resolution in and of itself is usually just a simple statement, a desire for something, but there's no power behind it. There's no meaning, no momentum, no energy, no drive. Now, whatever goals you want to achieve in your life actually require some work, some planning in order to make them succeed. And a goal is something that is actually measurable. So when you say, and if we stick to health and fitness, that I'm going to lose 20 pounds in the next 4 months, that's a measurable goal because you've got both time and you've got the amount of weight. Now, it's also an outcome. Now, can you achieve the outcome? That in itself is the question. You can't necessarily make that happen per se. And I'll give you another example. If you say, I'm going to increase my earnings by a certain percentage, or I'm going to increase my earnings in my business by a certain amount of money, can you actually control that outcome? No. But what you can control are your habits and behaviors and your skills. So again, for healthy eating, how to eat to 80% full, how to eat more vegetables with every single meal, how to practice eating more slowly. These are healthy habits and behaviors and skill sets that once you practice them enough, they become routine, they become rote. You might not even realize that you're doing them, and that is what actually leads to helping you achieve goals in your health that might almost be automatic. And I also talked about how we need to have some sort of a potential reward when we're trying to create new behaviors. That could be intrinsic, something that makes you, the reward is something that makes you feel better. You know it's a good thing for you. Or it's external. And you could use an example of, let's say, maybe you were tracking your progress for a particular habit and your goal is to get 80% compliance. And if you get there, if you've checked off all of the boxes, then you decide, oh, this is a very special restaurant that I like to go to once every 2 weeks, and that's my reward, or whatever the case may be. Now, going forward, and Charles Duhigg talks about this in his book, oh, the name of the book, I'm so sorry, just escapes me, but it's about habits. It might be called The Power of Habits, but he talks about when you were creating these routines and we're getting into a habit loop, that the reward, especially an external reward, might be very important at the beginning. But as you get better at the practice, as you develop the behavior, as you develop the regular skill, and then this new habit, whatever it may be, becomes routine, the reward might diminish. The need for the reward might diminish. And then suddenly you've got this wonderful new healthy habit or fitness behavior, and you don't need a reward for it. You're simply doing it. It's become a part of your life. So let's get into what the next two major points will be for part two of the broadcast today. And that's how cooking your meals in bulk, doing some form of advanced preparation, whether that be cooking, planning, grocery shopping, reduces decision fatigue, and what decision fatigue actually is, and how this can hinder your healthy habits and behaviors. And then finally, time. There's always enough time. There's always enough time to do or be or achieve whatever it is you want, and I'm going to explain that. So let's get into the big issue of decision fatigue. Now, this sounds really mean, but decision fatigue could be making you fat. Decision fatigue could be making a real mess of your progress. Now, I've been talking really fast here because when I start a presentation or I'm talking about something that I'm passionate about, I tend to talk a mile a minute and I'm rushing. So for the purpose of explaining decision fatigue, let's take a moment to become present. So I'm going to ask you in a moment to take a very slow, deep breath and to hold it for a 2 count and then slowly exhale. Okay, so sitting upright. Now we're going to take a nice deep breath in, hold it, and exhale. Let's do that one more time. A nice big sigh out. Might sound a little bit funny, but it feels good. It's actually just brought me more in tune with myself in the moment. Now, if you haven't done that, take a moment to do that while you're listening. Now, think about your life and think about today. How did it start for you? Did you wake up with the alarm clock? Did you hit the snooze button? Did you wake up naturally? And how did you feel when you woke up? Did you feel rested? Did you feel stressed? Were you automatically thinking about the day and what you had to accomplish? Do you remember how you even felt? Now, did you have breakfast? Do you remember what you ate for breakfast? We are such busy people, and we live in such a busy society where we're rushing around trying to get things done. And whether you live in Canada or the US, you're either running at 100 miles an hour or 100 kilometers an hour. And what's driving you crazy? You've got problems at work, an account is driving you crazy and giving you a headache. Maybe you're not feeling well. You've got your kids going into daycare and you've got to get off work early to pick them up because your partner isn't able to do it because he or she's in a meeting. You're reading the news and you're freaked out about what's happening with the presidency in the US. Things are demanding our attention, and we're having to decide, even when they're micro decisions, what we're going to do, what we're going to give our attention to. Now, as you speed through life making all these micro or major decisions, your decision-making muscle is literally just a muscle. So the more bicep curls that you do, the more you're going to build up that muscle. But when you have your workout, you can only do so many sets and reps and only do so much weight until that muscle actually completely fatigues and it shuts down. It's not going to let you do any more. So let me give you an example. Let's say you've had a really rough day. You've had to do a lot of thought work, or maybe there's been a lot of demands on your time, and you get home and you're like, oh my God, don't ask me another question. Don't ask me to decide what we're going to have for dinner. Or you're driving home and you think, crap, I've got absolutely nothing in the fridge. Maybe I should go to the grocery store and pick up some chicken and vegetables because I know Darren told me a great recipe that'll... Oh, forget it. I've got no energy. I just can't deal with it. Wait, there's a drive-through right over there. Or you go to a restaurant. And then, hey, I've done the same thing. What do you do when you sit down at a restaurant and you've had a really rough day? What does the waiter do? Hi, how are you? I'm so-and-so. Could I get you a drink? Well, yes, please. I'd like a beer. Now, nothing wrong with that. But if that becomes a habit repeated several times a week or almost every single night, that's going to make achieving optimal health very difficult for you. It's going to slow down your metabolism, and it's not going to make it very easy to lose weight. So if you're watching this live or if you're watching this video later, leave me a comment at this point. Have you had to deal with this kind of decision fatigue in your life, and how does it make you feel? What strategies have you perhaps tried to reduce the number of decisions that you need to make in your day? So I've already explained what decision fatigue is, but it's worth mentioning it again. Simply put, the more decisions that you have to make throughout the day, the more difficult it becomes later on in the day to make any more decisions, let alone good decisions or health-based decisions. So if you've got something very important to work on, the earlier you can do that in the day, the better, when naturally we feel clearest of mind and ready to put our attention or our focus on something, and we're not already potentially distracted by so many things that easily distract us in life. Now, for the purpose of this broadcast, how can you then better manage your decision fatigue in relation to improving your health? Let's use the general goal or desire to improve your health and lose weight. Now, here's the thing. If a particular food is not in your proximity, so if a particular food is not in your kitchen, is not in your fridge, is not in your cupboards, is not in your desk at work, is not in the fridge at work, is not in your car, you can't eat it, right? This is the beautiful thing about the proximity equation. If you don't want to eat a particular food, don't have it in your proximity. Now, the beautiful thing about this is you then don't need any willpower and you don't have to make a decision. Because let's say you pull open the cupboards and normally you have some junk food in there, maybe crackers or chips or candy bars, and they're not there. There's no decision to be made. Well, there might be a decision to be made like, okay, what am I going to take out of this cupboard and cook for dinner? But you don't have to go through the process of thinking, oh, should I eat this treat or not? And how is it going to make me feel? And you might be starting to process a whole bunch of ideas in your head about whether it's good for you or not, and whether, you've had a hard day and you deserve it, and on the process goes. So I'm going to give you a number of ways that you can deal with eliminating the bad choices that you don't want to make in your life. So I suggest getting out a piece of paper or just using a notes app and make a list of what I call, and what Precision Nutrition calls, the red light foods, or your trigger foods. Now that could be ice cream, candy bars, chips, popcorn, I don't know. The foods that you know are bad for you, that aren't helping you with your health goals, and the foods that maybe make you crave more. So chips are a fantastic example. Things like Doritos and nacho chips are designed by the food companies with lots of salt, MSGs, and flavorings, a crunch factor, an appearance factor. There's millions and millions of dollars of research that goes into producing this food so that it tastes fantastic in the mouth. It explodes the sensors of your palate and you want more, and it doesn't make you feel full. So if you've got a big bag of chips and you're sitting in front of the television just almost mindlessly, totally mindlessly, eating one chip after another, bam! What happens after? You are so frustrated or unhappy with yourself. So make a list of those foods. Now, your action step to deal with this, once you've done that list, is to decide what to do with those foods. Do you want to eliminate them from your home? Throw them out, maybe give them to someone you don't like. But get them out of your home, get them out of your car, get them out of your workplace. Because when they're not there, you don't have to think about them being there. And I think a good alternative is to learn to stock your home with more green light foods, the foods that are actually healthy for you, that are going to support better behaviors and healthier eating. So what is outside of the scope of this broadcast is, if you perhaps crave a lot of sugar or you're feeling low energy, we would need to address what's going on in your diet and how you're eating to determine if we need to bring in different foods or combination of foods so that you will feel satisfied and you won't have these cravings, which makes it easier to eat healthy. So one of the best approaches you can do is to make your home healthy by default. Don't have the things that you don't want in your household. Out of sight, out of mind. But here's another important point. This is not about depriving yourself or, going all ballistic and making it impossible for you to never have something that you really, really enjoy. And it doesn't matter what it is. I don't care whether it's the what you would think, most awful food in the world, but it just gives you incredible pleasure. Allow yourself to have it every once in a while. But make it a reward, make it a treat. And another way to help control the red light food is to only buy a single serving of it. And I also like to suggest go outside of the home. So while I have a sweet tooth for sure, I know I'm better off if I enjoy it outside of the house. So maybe I'll decide, and I love the chocolate chip cookies at Starbucks. They're like $2.25 or $2.50. It's ridiculous for a single cookie, but there's a mental association with the cost of the cookie and the size of the cookie. It's one large cookie. I can sit down, have a nice espresso, enjoy it, dunk a little bit at a time in the coffee, take my time with it. But if I was to bring cookies home, I'd buy a whole box. It'd probably be a couple of dozen. And I know that I could easily eat an entire sleeve. So that would be my most important recommendation, is to keep those foods out of the house and manage your enjoyment of those foods by going to single serving. For a lot of people, chips is the downfall. So don't buy the family size, buy the portion size, the individual size bag. And if it's ice cream, perhaps go for something like the individual on a stick Haagen-Dazs bars or something like that, instead of buying the whole container. Now, how can you help reduce or eliminate decision fatigue when it comes to preparing your meals, so that when you come home you don't have to think about it? Well, preparing starts for most people on the weekend for the week ahead, if you have a Monday to Friday kind of work routine. So that might mean booking time with yourself, making an appointment in your calendar to go out and buy groceries. And maybe you're buying groceries to cook some food in bulk, or to cook in bulk for a week. Maybe you're buying groceries to have healthy snacks that you can take with you to work. Perhaps you're going to also book in your calendar the time to do the cooking. And maybe you don't have time to do a 3-hour bulk cook, but you could do 2 or 3 smaller cooks throughout the week, and you book that in your calendar. You also book in your calendar when you're going to take care of your fitness and your exercise. You make these things a commitment to yourself. Now, I also advise people who do have very busy work schedules, very demanding schedules that mean they need to be at the office and they really can't get away, or they work in excess of 60 hours a week, is investigate either having a private chef cook for you, or doing a meal planning service for perhaps your lunches and dinners, or lunches and a couple snacks while you're at work. Now, it might cost more, but you can do your research on people that provide these services in your area on Google, and also read the reviews, perhaps even talk to customers, ask for recommendations. In the long run, this will go a long way to reducing decision fatigue if then you know somebody else is preparing healthy meals for you, so that you don't have to make that choice. So, I mentioned this earlier. You come home from work, you've had a long day, and you're hungry. So what do? If you've prepared some meals in advance, you don't have to make a big decision. It's a small decision. You open the fridge door and you look in and you think, do I want the chicken or the beef? Do I want sweet potato, broccoli, or roasted peppers? Those are really small, simple, easy decisions. You put it all together on a plate, you heat it up, and in a few minutes you're actually eating dinner, and you can sit down, relax, and you can enjoy. All right, so this helps minimize food and healthy eating decisions, and will help you to stay on track with your healthy eating behaviors and goals. And this is just an aspect of simplicity. Simplicity makes behavioral change easier. When you use these strategies and you create more simplicity and reduce daily decision making, it is much easier to stick to your healthy habits without having to think or worry about completing or complying with what you've decided to do. So let's get on to the last topic about time. There's always enough time to do or achieve whatever you want in life. Now, the number one complaint I hear from people is, I don't have enough time. And I'm sorry to be very blunt here, but that is absolutely not true. What you're saying, in truth, is I am choosing to spend my time on this activity as opposed to that activity. Okay? What might be true is that maybe you are someone who works excessively long hours, but you've made the choice to have that job or that career. Or maybe you've made the choice to work that many hours because you're needing to make a certain amount of money to take care of your family. But these are choices that we make. So I really like something that the author Gay Hendricks says in his book, The Big Leap. I had to think about what that was called. He refers to this as Einstein time, and that time is a concept, okay? We create in our minds time and how we conceptualize time. We decide and choose what to spend time on our day. So thus, we are not limited by time itself. The limitation or the scarcity of time is also a construct. Now, this could upset you or annoy you. All I can tell you is it's true. It is not necessarily easy to accept, but once you start mulling it over and meditating on the idea that time is a concept, you start to see that it is true, and it is all about the choices we make. And the more you can accept that the choices you make are either helping you or hindering you, you will start to make different choices in your life. It's also very important that while time is just a concept, that you connect with and identify your drives and motivations, because that's what's going to help you prioritize your actions and choose the healthy habits that are going to long-term help you achieve the goals that you set out at the beginning of the year. Now, there's another thing. When you convince yourself that you don't have enough time to do something, it could be a result of fear, self-judgment, or the most common one, procrastination. I deal with procrastination all of the time. Now, why do we procrastinate? Sometimes it's a lack of vision, and that's simply not having a clear understanding of the changes that need to happen. So I talked about this in the very first part of the presentation. If you don't have a plan, if you don't know what you're doing day to day, week to week, you don't know what the actions are, you don't know what the tasks are, you don't know what the habits and behaviors are, you are lacking that vision, you are lacking that clarity of what you need to do. And that's why we procrastinate, because we're asking ourselves, what should I do? But if you can look at the plan you've outlined and you look at the smallest task, you've got a choice. That small task isn't as big as the 15-pound weight goal. Okay? So if we go back to what I was talking about earlier, where you perhaps prioritize on your weekend to do some cooking in bulk, that's an effective way to manage your time, which creates the structure in your week. That structure is the meal plan. This means you go into the week with fewer, bigger decisions that need to be made. And those big decisions are, do I go out to a restaurant or do I eat the healthy food that I already cooked at home? All right. That also helps when you've got these things, when you've made these decisions ahead of time, when you've done these practices ahead of time, when you've set up the structure like a meal plan ahead of time, that alleviates the tendency to procrastinate. So here's really one of the last points while we're wrapping up here, is that in order to change, you have to first want to change. All right. And then when you've made that decision to change, you have to decide what you want. So what are your goals, or what are your vision? And then you need to break that down into the action plan, which consists of, which I've already said, of the various tasks and projects that are going to help you get to that point. Now, when I'm working with someone one-on-one, I might start with, yeah, so what are your goals? What do you want to achieve? Just to get that sort of general sense, but that's never really usually the reason. It's usually something much deeper. And I take the time to really help the person go through, and I would suggest you do the same. Like, get emotionally clear and connected to why you want to do this thing. Because having that attachment and knowing your why, that deeper emotional reason that kind of makes you almost have that moment where you go, oh wow, that's why I want to do this. That's going to help you through the tough times when you're wanting to procrastinate, sleep in, or have that dessert that you told yourself that you weren't going to have. So make that deep emotional resonance so that there's a power and an energy and a drive to help motivate you and work to support your willpower. So to conclude here, I'm going to ask you to think about a couple questions for yourself. What is your vision for 2017? And when I say vision, that's the bigger, more grandiose, like it might be multiple goals, but what do you want to see happen in your life for 2017? If you've got a notepad, or just write down on a piece of paper, you can take 10-15 minutes afterwards and really get deep and think about these questions. Ask yourself, what do you want to be better than 2016? What do you want to be better than 2016? Now, what do you want to stop doing, and what do you want to start doing? Now, I'm going to put a little caveat on these two. Starting something and stopping something is a lot more difficult. because you're really having to start something new from scratch or stop something that perhaps has been what we might call a bad habit or a bad behavior. Think of it perhaps in this way. What do I want to do less of? So when you start doing less of a particular behavior, that might lead to you eventually stopping that behavior altogether. So think of it in terms of, could I do 10% less of this? Maybe it's something you do on a regular basis, so you give yourself a day off from doing it. Or when it comes to eating, it might be changing what's on your plate, so you're eating less pasta, for example. Or maybe you're measuring the amount of pasta so that you're having half the amount of pasta. That would be doing less of something, and that might eventually move towards you maybe on certain meals replacing the pasta with a healthy vegetable. And what are you already doing but you want to improve upon? So instead of maybe starting something new, is there something you're doing pretty well right now and you want to make that better? And maybe that could somehow have the attachment of something smaller that might be new, but it would be easier to do that smaller thing in conjunction with something that you're already doing well. So that's a wrap for part 2 of the presentation. Questions, please put them in the comments area. If you have something more personal that you want to speak with me about, you can always do a private message on Facebook, or you can email me directly, and my email is Darren, D-A-R-R-E-N, @eatmoveb.com. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all of the likes. Please share this broadcast with somebody that you care about, and there will be more to come. I wish you all the best in health and wellness for 2017. Signing off.